listening to Pop This, the podcast where three women talk about pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen, Andrea Gin, and Andrea Warner.
Guys, I'm going to start with some sad news. It's not breaking at this point because, well, we record a week before the episodes come out. But I am, just yesterday we discovered that Francine Pascal had died, and she, I believe, was 92. She had a really long, wonderful life. That's great. And she gave the world Sweet Valley High. She gave the world a lot of stuff, but ultimately she gave the world Sweet Valley High. I loved Sweet Valley High when I was little. Did you guys ever read Sweet Valley High?
Oh, really?
No,
I read it when I was little.
Oh, nice.
I'm older than you, A-Dub, so I was like, I think sort of around more closer to
the twins age.
Yeah, when I read it.
Yeah. So. I was in grade 5 when I started Sweet Valley High, and I did delve into Sweet Valley Twins. Like, is it Sweet Valley Twins? Is like the middle school books? Anyway, whatever. I did that a little bit at the same time as I was doing the high school, but the high school was already so like salacious that I couldn't keep it in the twin level for very long. But it's how my best friend and I met in grade 5. She and I have reconciled as friends recently, so I'll be able to ask her.
Reconciled? You had a falling out?
We had a falling out in high school, and then she was amazing, and just kind of a grade 12 friend fallout kind of thing, like a lot of stuff had happened, and we were going in different directions, and they don't really give you the communication skills to be able to like talk through how you might change as people. And so we just ended up having like a big fight, and our whole friend group broke up, and blah, it took a lot of stuff down with it, unfortunately. But a number of years later, she found me on MySpace and reached out to me, and we picked up our like friendship, and we've been friends ever since. And we still text, and we like chat about stuff. Actually, I talk about our friend breakup in We Oughta Know, and her and her mom came to the book launch back then for We Oughta Know, and it was just lovely. Anyway, we met over Sweet Valley High because like I was reading a book in class, I don't even know so one of us was reading the book in class, and one of us came up to the other and snatched it out of their hands. You know what? I'm the snatcher for sure. I can see myself in that role. Yeah. So I think she was reading a book, and then I snatched it out of her hands to like see which one it was. And that's how we became friends, and we became best friends like shortly thereafter.
So
wow, okay.
Which twin were you more
affinity with?
Related to more?
I mean, obviously, I sort of related more to Elizabeth, but I had this tiny bit of me that, like, kind of wanted the drama of Jessica, Like, but I, 100% Elizabeth. Yeah, I did think her selection of boyfriends was extremely boring all the time, like, both Todd and Jeffrey. Jeffrey's whole thing was that he was from Portland and liked to be outdoors. Todd was a basketball player. Like, such boring men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I thought they made like a TV show out of it or a movie or something.
Oh, they did.
I didn't watch any of that. Did you?
I only watched the TV show a couple times, but it never really stuck with me. But you know what I did do is I followed the twins to like Sweet Valley University, and I read those books.
Really?
For like, it was weird because suddenly like they were in university, so now the twins were allowed to actually have sex. And, like, spoiler alert, Lila and Bruce get married spontaneously. Or not married, they get together. But Jessica gets married spontaneously. But it turns out her husband ends up being abusive.
Oh.
And so then she leaves him.
Okay.
Oh, it got dark fast when they got to university. Okay. It really did.
There are so many Sweet Valley University novels.
Yeah, I don't think I made it through all of them, of course. But I did make it through, like, a chunk. Yeah, I think I made it I probably made it through more than I should have, but like I think I made it through like 25, 30. What I really enjoyed was when they did the Sweet Valley Saga editions where they delved into the ancestors of the twins, and both like on the mother and father side, and they would trace back generations of previous twins that led to Jessica and Elizabeth. And I really enjoyed those when I was younger.
Do you think that they ended up now down the road, they're the twins that married twins and had twins?
You know what? Maybe, yeah. Although I do think that the last I had heard, because the story got picked up again as adults, and I haven't read any of those. I think they're all like ebooks or something. So I don't think they're actual books. And I don't know how successful it was. Probably not that successful. But I had heard that Jessica married Todd.
What?
I know, right? Like, why?
Weird.
How does Todd get to stick around? Anyway, I will say the reason I for sure have never, ever tried cocaine and never want to is because Regina died after she got her cochlear ear implant. She goes to a party and she has her hearing for the first time ever. And she had a fight with Bruce and she tried one line of cocaine and died.
Oof.
And that is 100% one of the reasons I have never, ever tried cocaine. So, you know what? Sometimes books work.
Wow. Okay.
Scared Straight by Francine Pascal.
I mean, to be fair, I guess I had some other examples that I had known growing up that like made me never want to try cocaine too. But this really reinforced it because you never know what is tucked into a line. And we have seen that, frankly, with the drug poisoning crisis. So the one thing I'll say is like Francine Pascal, she was interviewed and they were talking about this quote in a lot of her obituaries just about like her books being like salacious and frivolous, et cetera, et cetera. Because of course, all books that are about teen girls end up being called salacious and frivolous. And I mean, to a certain extent, some of them were, but whatever. But she said, you know what? Girls read. Like girls became a huge part, teen girls became a huge part of the marketplace for publishers, and they were reading voraciously. And, you know, I was part of that. I'm paraphrasing her, but all credit to her, truly. She is 100%, her and Babysitter's Club, her and Anne M. Martin, I owe a lot to.
Wow.
Well, R.I.P. Francine Pascal.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
One of the great
Sorry to
authors.
start off on a bummer. Yeah.
The Great Authors series.
Yes. Well, I'll pop this for sure. She's in our pantheon of great authors.
Yes.
For mine, for sure.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, to be clear, she did only write the first 12 books herself, and then she oversaw every other book.
That's the way to do it.
Character Bible. Absolute
That
genius.
sounds
honestly
so smart. I know.
So good.
I saw somebody
So
criticizing that, and I was like, no, I'm sorry,
No.
not on my watch. But
That's what you
That's
want.
the dream,
Yeah.
pals.
No
That is
kidding.
absolutely the dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100% agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, how about you guys? What's rocking your worlds right now?
Well, let me segue off that because I'll be honest and say the Olympics are on in Paris right now, and they should be still when this episode comes out. As per usual, I'm a bit lukewarm on the sports, but opening ceremonies, love those always. I love what comes together, and I don't know, did either of you watch any of the scenes?
I watched a bit of it. At first I was like, what are they doing? And then I was like, this is amazing. I can't believe they had, the bravery to pull something like this off and just like totally think outside the box and do something that other committees have never done before. And it was raining and hard for the performers in some areas. You could tell it was slippery and maybe everyone didn't have a perfect performance, but I appreciate the panache that that committee had to pull that off. Because when you have to decide huge things like that by committee, usually the most boring thing wins. And that is not the case in the Paris Olympics. And I take my hat off to them.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
100% agree.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I mean, obviously, like the main thing that I have seen so far has just like been the Celine comeback, which, is especially after we just talked about her documentary. And like, I want to spend so much time discussing the absolute brilliance of the 1-2 punch of that documentary and then her comeback on like live stage in one of the biggest global stages
Live
ever.
stage. She was on the Eiffel Tower. I mean,
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah, no, but like
And she
brilliant,
sang
amazing,
live.
Incredible.
yeah.
Yeah. So I just like, I'm probably going to have to go back and like rewatch every segment of the opening because like that's not normally something that I care about that much. And I was away on a trip, so I didn't get to like actually watch it live, but I can't wait to go through it all because honestly, anything that makes certain people extremely mad as well, I want to see.
But
I am thrilled.
Apparently their frustrations were incorrect and they're just we know that.
But like that's what I love though. Like I love a knee jerk, like I have to be offended.
Yeah.
And then they kind of get shown their butts.
Yeah, no, I agree. So
I love it.
for me, as you can imagine, who wasn't excited about Celine, but for me, it was the first metal band to ever perform.
I thought of you when I saw that. Yes.
Right at the opening ceremony.
Yay.
Now, let's I just want to mention that there has been some people that say no, Nickelback played. I know.
They're not metal.
They're not metal. Thank
They're
you.
not metal.
Thank you
No,
from the
they're not
bottom of
metal.
my heart. Look at me. I'm like Celine here holding my heart, thanking you.
Yeah.
They are
you
not
can't
metal.
say Nickelback are metal.
After seeing that as part of the opening ceremonies, like I never want to see another ceremonies happen in a stupid stadium again. Do it all over the place.
All over
Like,
your city, exactly. So when I heard that they were
Show off
going,
your city.
that they were going to have Gojira, I know who Gojira is, and I've really liked them for a long time, and I was quite impressed because in terms of metal bands, they're like a real. Just to get into the subgenre, I think they're like a technical death metal, which is a really intense subgenre of metal. So when they came out and performed, it was so much. They're on that castle, they're on platforms, they've got like chains, so they can't fall out of this castle. And they played for their life. And what's been really fun is reading, obviously the reviews were amazing, even people who didn't like metal. But the band themselves, and, another Hold My Hand, they said they felt the entire metal community on their shoulders. Aww. That this was the first time, and they could tell that everyone was like, don't screw this up. Don't screw this up. Sadly, there's also been references to the fact that they must be satanic. I think that's what you were talking about.
Yet? But no, I was talking about the drag queens.
Yeah,
and
but they was
sorry. Yeah.
That Satan somehow, I don't know, like choreographed this event or.
Honestly, Satan could not choreograph such a cool event. I'm sorry,
just the metal
Satan's
part
got
of it.
One note, just the whole thing, the allusion to the painting and stuff, and how people thought it was
the Marie Antoinette. You mean
the Last Supper?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And the Marie Antoinette with no head. Yeah.
That was part of the metal show, though.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, but they complained
but
about
that
everything.
actually happened.
I know, and it's pretty ballsy, as you said earlier,
It's like a historical thing.
Yeah, we did this, and we're gonna talk about it. And we're gonna. Yeah,
and
no.
Honestly, we might have to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, you never know.
The implicit threat is that we are coming for the 1%, and I love that. Honestly, that's important.
I also want to just mention that the cauldron on that balloon that flew into the sky.
So cool! Wow,
so cool. And
look how much we learned. I didn't know hot air balloons were invented by the French.
No, I didn't either.
I learned so much during that ceremony.
Apparently, though, the Lady Gaga thing was taped.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who would know? She could have been a projection on a wall. Nobody would know. That was the slight thing, is that it kind of felt, when I was watching her, I was like, she's just performing to nobody because she's on the Seine. There doesn't seem to be people around. And that just seemed like weird feeling.
Do you think that that's why she did the thing in her limo where she popped through the roof and gave her little monsters outside her hotel a 2.5 minute sample of her new song?
I did not see that part.
Neither did I, but
that was an after thing, but I'm just wondering if she was responding to criticism at all, in her own way.
They didn't say it when I was watching live. They weren't mentioning it then. But what I did find an Instagram reel explaining this, I don't know how upset the French are, but this one guy was, because apparently Lady Gaga was imitating a famous French dancer.
Yep.
Who apparently also had a very strong relationship with Yves Saint Laurent, who made all of her costumes. And Lady Gaga was in Dior, who is one of the big sponsors.
They
did
did Celine's dress, and I saw this TikTok about how it took the best ateliers in the world had to work hundreds of hours on hand beating the fringe and everything. It was masterwork. basically.
But it was Dior as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, that's the sponsor that they gave all the LVMH or whatever, those initials. So, I mean, I find things like that disappointing because it just feels like that should be... I don't even know why Lady Gaga was there. Everyone else was French. I mean, I know that Celine Dion's Canadian, obviously, but
yeah, I thought it was
French.
weird that she opened the... I mean, she's obviously the most famous... She's super famous, but you would think that they would have used to showcase like a French star.
There's gotta be. I mean, my gosh.
There's so many huge French stars. I also felt it was weird. I kept asking people why Lady Gaga. I understood Celine, but I didn't understand Lady Gaga.
But I've just to also let people know that there's sports going on too now.
Yeah, so sports have happened.
And they continue to happen.
Still sporting.
A lot of jumping and ball hitting and swimming and gymnasticking. There's a whole lot of things going on.
Simone Biles, she's incredible.
I'm not even a very nationalistic person. No, I'm not at all. But you know what happens in the Olympics? You're like, what's our medal tally? Why do I care? It's so dumb. I don't care.
Exactly.
I'm embarrassed. Yeah. The Olympics are on. There will be a closing ceremony, so that's something to look forward to as well.
I mean, I gotta say, like, I know that this is a longer intro, but I still want to get to you, AG. And you were watching these boats.
On a boat.
Did you watch them while you were on a boat?
Yes, I watched them from a giant cruise boat in Alaska.
Wow.
You're just like T-Pain on a boat. Look at you.
Yeah. I had to go on this family thing. My whole family went on a cruise. And it was one of those things where I would be the only one not going if I stood my ground and said I don't do cruises. And it would forever be a thing of how I miss the family cruise.
Yeah.
But I will say it's all the things you think are going to be terrible are pretty terrible. Like there's 2,000 people on your boat and the foods has to be kind of the most watered down, bland kind of food to satisfy the people who are on the cruise, the most people.
The broadest palate.
Let me guess that the only hot sauce they had was Tabasco.
No, they didn't even have that. There's nothing spicy at all on the boat. No spice.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no, cruises
How can you not have
are
hot sauce?
absent of spices except for salt and pepper.
That's
all
wild.
the people want, salt and pepper. Sorry to inform you of that, Lisa. I know that probably means you're never going on a cruise.
Well, that was it. That was the decider. I mean, right there.
Wow.
Yeah. No hot sauce, I'm out.
Wow.
I will say, though, that I finally, for the first time in my life, understood Leonardo DiCaprio on Titanic being like, I'm the king of the world. You know that scene? Because when you stand on top of the boat.
I think we know that scene.
When you stand on top of a giant boat in the front of it and you put your arms out like that, you do feel like the king of the world. It's true.
Did you do that?
Did you do it?
Yes, I did.
Was everyone doing it?
I didn't stand on the rail like he did. I was just standing
course.
in the vicinity of the front of the boat.
Yeah.
I'm not
wow.
It's a little dangerous to stand on the rails and prohibit.
But were a lot of people doing it? Were you all taking turns or what?
A few people while I was there brought it up, so it was on people's minds. Yeah.
How about just I'm on a boat, the T-Pain? Anyone doing that? That
I
would
did
make
not
me laugh.
see anybody do that. No.
Mm-hmm.
Did anyone fall overboard and were declared a missing person, and their husband or wife got away with murder because it's international waters?
Not that I heard of, but I did think about how easy that would be to do. Because
1,000%.
Because Alaska is dark at night and the water is black. And along both sides of the boat, people have their own verandas that just empty out into open water.
Uh-huh.
And who would know? Who would know? Except when
No
they
one.
scan you when you get on and off the boat. So presumably if you don't scan off the boat.
That's true. They'd find out eventually.
They would realize there was a problem.
Yeah, I guess the scanning maybe has cut down on the ability to just do the perfect murder.
To do a talented Mr. Ripley.
Yeah. Because they didn't used to scan.
Yeah.
I've only been on one overnight cruise. It was like a repositioning thing, and I went with my grandma because my maternal grandma, she really loves cruises, and so I accompanied her on one. I cannot cruise. I get seasick pretty easily.
Oh.
We didn't even. It was just Seattle to Vancouver.
Wow.
and I spent the final 4 hours. Now, granted, I had drank a lot of wine, but I always stop before I get too bad. So it wasn't that. I spent the final 3 hours. Like, we stayed up until like 3 a.m. They didn't let us off the boat until 7. And I just laid in bed while the ship kind of like rocked gently because it was kind of stormy. And I was like, Graham, I'm going to die.
Really?
Graham, I'm going to die. Yeah.
My sister gets really seasick, but she got a room if you're closer to the center of the boat, don't get rocked. It's like,
oh, we had a little patio. I think that if I had to do it again, I'd still choose the patio and choose to be sick because I like fresh air.
She had a patio, but if she was just in the middle of the boat, it's just like if you're at
not at one end.
If you're at the front or the back, you feel it more. And she didn't have any problems this time.
Oh, good. Did you feel like you learned nautical terms?
Yeah, you learn terms like fore and aft and
starboard and port.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's where they tell you where the restaurant is and where your room is and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. Okay. We've had a lot.
Honestly, could not believe that you just told us that you did the Titanic. I truly, that was the last thing I thought I would hear from you.
You have to.
Me
just
too.
Had not anticipated.
When you will feel the draw if you are ever on a boat like that. You can't not do it.
Well, I'm also thinking about what we watched and how they stand on the edge of a canyon and shout into the abyss. So there's some tie-ins here. I'm Andrea Warner.
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
I'm Andrea Gin.
And you're listening to Pop This. And if you got the clue of what we're talking about from the small thing about standing on the edge of an abyss and shouting into it, congratulations, you've watched Garden State too many times.
And then making out with someone while the third person in your party
your friend
is just
stands
standing there
next to you.
That's not awkward.
I 100% remember that from the first time. So I watched this movie in theaters. Of course I did. It came out in 2004. I was 25 years old. I was perfectly primed for this movie.
Yeah.
I was the age group for this film. I remember watching it and really enjoying it and feeling like the soundtrack I loved for the most part. The soundtrack was one of those things that I really that's what grabbed me. And I thought some of the shots were really clever, et cetera, et cetera. I've always been disturbed by that being the moment that they have their major kiss, standing next to their friend awkwardly, just trying to disappear into his plastic garbage bag in the rain after they've just know that these two young parents put a baby down to sleep and they have gone and stood next to their home and screamed their faces off. Is there a more 25-year-old childless grown child sort of behavior in the world? No.
Wow,
I was
that's okay.
I was in my early 30s at that point, and it was I hate 25-year-olds. That is my memory of that movie.
I don't blame you.
Well, I have a softer impression of it, but we'll get to that. We can get to that.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. I really dug in there. Sorry. So it is its 20th anniversary. Let's do this. Lisa, do you want to read the background?
Sure. Garden State is a 2004 film written and directed by Zach Braff and starring Braff, Natalie Portman, Peter Skarsgård, and Ian Holm. Braff based the film on his real-life experiences. The romantic dramedy, which currently boasts an 86% freshness rate on Rotten Tomatoes, grossed more than $35 million at the worldwide box office and won First Feature Film at the 2005 Independent Spirit Awards. Its acclaimed soundtrack also made fans flock from the cinema to the nearest record store, with the album later beating Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill Volume 2 and Shrek 2 for the Grammy for Best Compilation Soundtrack Album.
Now, what do we think of that?
I honestly support that win at that time because I don't care about Shrek 2, and I have grown to really despise Tarantino on a personal level. His music selection is always great,
yes,
though.
But it's also retro, and it's all been done in other movies. He just steals. There was something to me about this Garden State soundtrack. I thought that as much as there were artists on it that I already knew. So there was some like there was some Nick Drake on there and
Paul Simon.
And Paul Simon, yeah. But that was my introduction, I think, to 07, or at least pretty close. And
yeah,
I think Coldplay was relatively new in 2004, or so.
Yeah, they've been around for a couple years only.
And sure. The lead singer.
A lot of people only found out about the Shins,
the Shins, exactly,
from that record.
Yeah, exactly. I did, and this is kind of amusing side note. I did get a chance to interview. Oh my heavens! Now my name's the blanking. The lead singer of the Shins. Anyone?
Oh yeah. I've talked to him too.
Yeah,
James Mercer.
There you go, James Mercer. Thank you. And they were putting out their second album, and I asked him, "Have you called Zach Braff?" And I thought that's the joke, and he luckily thought it was funny too. But he hadn't. He hadn't called him.
Sorry.
I was going to say, I'm angry indie music 30-something-year-old. That was like, this is the death knell of indie music.
Really?
Yeah, this is it. This is where it ends. It's done. Natalie Portman is the most famous actress in the world at that point. And like, nothing against her. She's great. I really like her. She does great work. But just the idea of like the super uber popular famous actress just being on this big movie that was so popular, just being like, you got to hear the Shins. It'll change your life. That was it. That was the moment indie music died. Everybody.
Wow. Oh boy. Okay.
I get where you're coming from for sure. I just I was a little bit too young to appreciate that would be the sentiment, because I thought at that moment I was like, oh man, this is great. I know more now about cool indie bands, and I am going to feel this way forever. Frou Frou, amazing. That Let Go song, God, that's the reason one of the reasons the trailer is so effective. And I love it so much. And even Blue Eyes with the Carey brothers, anyway.
And that Colin Hay song, and he's actually the lead singer from Men at Work. And he wrote that that song, I Don't Think I'll Ever Get Over You. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm such a sucker for soundtracks. Own so many of them. I love them to death. I hear a song and I always want to put it in a film. I always wanted to be a music supervisor. So for me, I just was like, this is fantastic. I loved that soundtrack. I listened to it a lot. They even had them screaming in the bags on the top of the album cover. Remember? It was I loved it.
I do. Mm-hmm. I 1,000% owned that soundtrack. Yeah. Of course I did. No doubt about it that I was one of the hordes running to the record store to buy the soundtrack.
Me
for
too.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate, AG, though, that you always were extremely cool. And because I think I always think about with you talking about when we watched the Pussycat Dolls movie, the fake band from the Archie
Josie
and the Pussycats.
Josie and the Pussycats.
Yeah. Excuse me. Josie and the Pussycats. And you remember how secretly subversive that film was about selling out and just the commodification and how you could get a Doritos ad into every song basically. Anyway, I just remember when we were talking about it and you watching it, you're like, that is exactly what I was afraid of in 2000 or whatever. I can't remember. But anyway, it was you were just, I will say, you were cooler than me and in 2004
same.
And that's just a fact.
I just remember shedding a single tear for the Shins after that.
Well,
okay. I don't know if they agree with you, but we can always ask them.
You know what? I think maybe it's better to shed that tear for when they were on Gilmore Girls.
Yeah, that's true.
About a year later, and are performing in the bar when Rory and Paris have that very lame kiss, but everyone treated it in the show as if it was something highly erotic and subversive.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, but. You know what? I still love that too. I will take the Shins in any iteration. It's just, I can't help it. I loved them. Mm-hmm. Anyway, AG, do you want to read the synopsis?
Sure. Andrew Larchman is an emotionally detached 26-year-old who returns to his hometown of New Jersey for his mother's funeral after living in Los Angeles for 10 years. Andrew intends to visit for a few days, and in the process reconnects with old friends, struggles to resolve issues with his distant father, and forms a romantic relationship with Sam, a local young woman with problems of her own. And that's from John Lissy in Pop Matters.
Succinct.
With problems of her own.
So I have to admit something here.
Oh, please.
Ooh.
I may have conflated, like over the years, this movie with the other movie in which Natalie Portman plays a young woman.
Beautiful Girls?
Yes.
Yes.
They
Oh my
kind of
God.
have melted into this as the same movie to me.
Well, it's the same character, basically, but in the Beautiful Girl, she's 12.
Yeah.
But how old is she in this movie?
23
She
when I
works in
looked
a
it
law
up.
office.
It said she's
Like
23.
no,
yeah.
like Natalie Portman herself is 23, but how old is the character supposed to be?
I thought she was supposed to be 23.
I assumed 23 or 24, even
Yeah.
though she, honestly, I will say the first time I watched it and last night when I watched it, both times, even though I knew the truth on the second watch, I thought that she had been given direction to play the character as someone who is slightly mentally deficient.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't get that.
That was my first take on the character in the office when she meets Zach Braff's character. I thought, okay, is this going to be My Sister Sam Rides the Bus or whatever? Like, I honestly thought that's where we were going with it early on. And I understand that's not what it is. And I think the character settles down a little bit after that initial meeting. And Natalie Portman settles into the performance a little bit. But even last night when I watched it, knowing the truth, I was like, nope, still reads to me as some kind of affectation of like an issue.
Yeah, I only noticed that watching it this time too. And I also felt like I didn't know if she was supposed to be like 16 or like how old she was at all. Because she's kind of treated like a child by her family. She has like hamsters for pets.
Well, yeah, but my read on that is that she has a significant health issue and the family's babied her for so long because they're so worried about her all the time. And she just, has stayed very, very sheltered and childlike.
But I think Lisa, I like your reasoning for that characterization, but like, I do think she's a childlike adult at best. And like, I felt uncomfortable when she was drinking a beer, but what I felt even more uncomfortable about was when we get to the point where at the, close to the end of the film, where Andrew literally says, "What I like about you is your innocence." And
yeah, that one was, I agreed. That was rough. When he said that, I was like, yeah.
That did not hit me as so gross when I was
I agree.
20 years younger. Now I find all of that revolting. And the fact that she spins it as like he's trying to protect me. Ooh, this was a hard elements of this movie, real hard to swallow 20 years later, gotta say.
Yeah, I'm not, I have to say, for me, on the second viewing, like, of course I watched it when it came out. And for some reason, my memory of it is edgier. That it was an edgy movie, that it was somehow like kind of cool and sexy and weird. And this time I watched it and it was just sad. It was just so unbelievably sad and actually gentler than I remembered. That it was just this story of just a bad set of circumstances. It seemed like for everybody in this story that they're all just, kind of doing their best with what they've got. And it was like, I for some reason, I thought his performance was, again, my memory was it was a bit more gonzo or something, but I'd forgotten that it's just, he's just a really sad. And here's something really funny, because the first movie it makes me think of is Harold and Maude. And then I said, I have to look this up. And Zach Braff said that Harold and Maude is one of his favorite movies.
That makes sense.
And then that's really seeped out.
Lisa, did you maybe meld it in your brain, instead of with Beautiful Girls, did you meld it in your brain with Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas?
I feel like I did. I feel like something... I don't know why I thought that. It was just... there was just something, I just thought for some reason it was a different film. I don't know why. And then watching it this time, I just felt it was a tremendously awkward and sad movie.
Yeah.
That's so interesting because in reading the reviews across the past 20 years when I was doing this outline, it's like this movie was so critically acclaimed when it came out and people just loved it. And like it really meant something and it was a cultural touchstone. And we talked about the soundtrack just being everybody buying the soundtrack and stuff. But almost immediately you start reading backlash against the film. Like even like a couple of years later, people are like, we were wrong about this movie. It's the worst movie ever. Like in Vice, there's still like in 2015, they wrote an article being like, it's the 10-year anniversary since we realized Garden State sucked.
Yeah.
That was like the title of their thing. But it's curious to me now, like 20 years later, do we just think of the movie as sad or has it come back to like, we kind of like this movie again? Or is it still like we hate this movie so much?
You know, I think that for me, it's both more complicated and less complicated. So like, I was really thinking about this while I was watching it because I noticed how Zach Braff as a writer really wants to congratulate himself on what he thinks are the most interesting lines that he's come up with. Because his direction is that he pauses too long on those lines to give them more emphasis. And I think that that's like kind of not a great decision. But I think his eye, in terms of setting up shots and stuff, is pretty good. Like there's some pretty like memorable scenes in the film and like some twee stuff that like, you know, is a signature of 2004. Obviously a lot of elements of the script I don't think age very well. You know, characters are ableist and racist and it's not great. But I do think ultimately that like Natalie Portman's performance is actually pretty good with what she has to work with. Like, I think she's really doing her best. She's a good crier. I did appreciate that. And I did laugh a couple of times about some of the visual jokes when he's in like the office with the new therapist and the therapist that goes up the wall of all of his awards. And there's one award on the ceiling because he's running. Like, I did find that funny.
Yeah.
But like, I don't love this film and I don't hate it, but I don't think it shouldn't exist. Like, I'm not fascist in my sort of like, you know, other films that are a bit more misogynistic and are a bit more like haven't aged well. I'm just like, ugh, why does this exist? This one I don't feel like that about, but I do think it is the precursor to the Manic Pixie Dream Girl problem. And I do think that this movie doesn't actually like women.
Oh, I have to agree. Those party scenes where there's just girls in underwear for no reason. I mean, I just don't. And then the spin the bottle, like just for whatever reason. And who are these girls? Don't they? Yeah. They don't have any friends that they went to school with that were girls, like at all.
Nope.
These are
they only hang out with teenage girls.
And even that gross remark that he thinks they're legal is not funny. I am shocked that was funny at some point. But of course, I'm not surprised. I mean, it obviously, but yeah, I found that was terrible. But yeah, I mean, I like some of the awkward scenes, like with Jean Smart and Peter Sarsgaard.
Oh my God. Jean Smart and Jim Parsons.
Yeah.
I want that actually to happen. I want Jim Parsons to get cast in Hacks and be her much younger love interest. This is now my dream scenario.
And just that dynamic at that table in the morning. I at first I'd forgotten, like, what was that? Like, what is, because he purposely keeps the relationship, like, so you don't know who's mother and son, who's, you know, you don't know why he's dressed up as a knight or any of these things. I mean, it was just so, and then just like, I think he had some, like you said, setting up shots and things. I think he had that. I think that Peter Skarsgård really made a great character out of this guy. You know how he's just always sitting shirtless? Like, what's that about? But, you know, it made sense.
He's like a lot of guys that are in photos from my childhood. So he's 20 years removed from photos from my childhood of all of my dad's friends.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just a dude sitting shirtless, drinking beer, and
smoking up
existing.
There. Yeah, and just, you know, not really, no big plans. You know, his major epiphany is to discover that you can bring back items at the shop and get money. I mean,
he's a grave robber.
Yeah, he's a grave robber as well.
Specifically a grave robber in a Jewish cemetery, which there's some layers there too. But anyways, yeah.
But also, what a friendship, right?
Do you think those two characters have spoken to each other once in 9 years?
No.
Me neither.
No. There was no, even when they see each other at the cemetery, it's like, isn't that Largeman? I think he did a really good job too of creating that kind of, they're out of high school, but not far enough out of high school yet that those connections aren't still kind of something, But yeah, I thought Peter, I don't know, like I know you two were saying about where they start kissing on the top of the roof of that car. Part of me was like, I really focused in on Peter Sarsgaard's face and I thought, he's seen worse. He's been doing worse. Like, this is nothing to him. Nothing.
Oh, no, it's nothing to him, but it's just like the utter disregard that they have. And like, this is the moment that we're supposed to all melt in the rain with them.
Yeah. Like, why would he write that scene so that guy's there? Like, why wouldn't he just write the guy, like, walked ahead of them or something? Like, why is he there?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if it was supposed to be we got overtaken and we didn't even wait for Peter Sarsgaard to be gone. I don't know. But yeah.
But that's the thing. Like, I actually think Peter Sarsgaard ended up being so good that the character stuck around in ways that, like, otherwise he wouldn't have, maybe. Like, this is my imagination for how the scene got shot. And the producers were just like, you got to have more Peter. Peter's great.
You know
really
what?
Making
and
this
whenever
movie
he spoke,
edgy
it was
and interesting.
It was ASMR for me, Peter Sarsgaard's voice. I'm just like leaning in. What? Say that again. It was...
Wow.
You have a real kitten getting her head stroked look on your.
Yeah, no, exactly. I was just. And then the other guy, the guy who created the silent Velcro, apparently is a big deal, and he was in Scream movies and on Broadway and things. So it's kind of amazing the cast he put together for this movie.
Yeah, like Method Man was in there too.
Yeah.
How did they get Method Man? And Method Man was great.
Yeah.
By the way, like, he doesn't get much to do, but he's great in what he. And the character actor Jackie, she's from Only Murders in the Building and in tons of other stuff. Like, she's doing the song at the beginning, and so's the shirt. And I think Ian Holm is terribly miscast in this film, but I still like him, and it was nice to see him.
Well, who doesn't like to see Ian Holm? Yeah, I agree. But it was not. And then. I know the actor has a real name, but I always think of him as Rachel's dad from Friends.
Rachel's dad.
Yeah, Miss Dr. Green. But he was a doctor in this, so and that story he told about, oh my gosh, the cufflinks and the purse, and and
he couldn't get into that. Honestly, you know what? That was my favorite character in the entire film. I also actually liked Sam's mom too. Sam's mom was pretty great, and I will say. God, okay, I'm such a sucker, you guys. But like, me and a dead parent story, like especially in a complicated parent to relationship story, I'm kind of a sucker for those. So as much as like I don't love the soliloquy we get where he talks about how his mom came to have her accident and how it was sort of blamed on him, etc. The moment that I actually thought was like sort of purely wonderful is when his character is like, I'll take that hug, and has hug from Sam's mom. And like, I understand that there's some like kind of icky elements there where like you're just like this broken man wants to be so badly be part of a family that he gloms on to the first person that he like shows him any attention. Like, I understand there's like not a good future for these two characters, but the hug itself was really tender and it made me like a little bit, maybe a little bit teary.
However, it comes on the heels of an egregious figure skating lie in the film.
Get in here.
Zero way anyone can do a double axel in a suit like that. It is
which
not
is why they didn't show
possible. It is not possible.
Yeah.
I am really here for all of your figure skating
truth,
like ire and fact checking. Like, I love it. I thought of you. I thought as soon as we got to this moment, I was like,
this is a trash
AJ's gonna have
script.
some opinions. AJ's gonna have some opinions. Yeah. Can you get past anything after that moment?
No, like the whole movie was a lie after that.
It's over, yeah. Well.
The whole movie was a lie. I really hope that you choose that for the quote to kick off the write-up of this when it gets posted to our page, because truly,
I did not spend any time. I don't know if either of you did, but that Zach Braff says this is based a lot on his own experiences. Like, I wonder how intense, like, boy, that's a lot. I didn't read about what was particular, like, did you see any of that? Did it say anything about, like, being over medicated as a child and a father that insisted on being his own son's therapist? I mean, yeesh.
Just like a prescribing psychiatrist.
Yeah.
He didn't even like seem to give him any therapy.
Yeah.
He just drugged him.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think he actually did grow up in New Jersey, but that's all I know.
Yeah, I saw that too, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is the one thing that I thought also the movie like attempted to be this piece of culture in 2004 where, you know, the 90s had been all about sort of like people getting medicated, and 2004 Zach Braff is throwing off the medication that he had not needed and like hopefully going to pursue an actual therapist, because I think there's a really pointed comment in that doctor he goes to saying you need a therapist. Like, yes, you may need medication, and I think he's really careful about saying that, and I think that that's important. But like, in addition to a medication, you need a therapist, and so I think that was like kind of an important message in 2004. But the way that it sort of really feels fake now, in that he's been on this medication for so long and we're not seeing the effects of it leaving his body at all. Like, there is complete like zero.
The shakes and exactly.
Well, there's just nothing.
Yeah.
There's just like, even just like sort of like the dullness, like we don't really see him coming alive, because we get that we are told that that's because of his connection to Sam. Like we see that he has these like rows and rows and rows of drugs that he takes and stuff, and the doctor makes all this list, and I just wanted a little bit more acknowledgement of what the mental and physical and emotional effects of that kind of like quitting cold turkey, because some of that medication, I don't think you can quit cold turkey safely, you know? So I just, that felt a bit irresponsible, even though I think that they were trying to do something actually like kind of progressive.
Yeah, and I mean, and the story is only over, what, 2 days? So it's hard to,
I think it's three
days? Yeah.
I think the movie, the one thing that I do appreciate about the movie is that it does capture, like, Lisa, you and I are both from kind of like small towns outside Vancouver, and it does capture that ennui you feel like when you've
suburbia?
left, when you've left high school and then you come back as an adult and you hang out with your friends that you had in high school, and it just feels weird, and people are the same, but they're, I don't know. It does capture that whole, like, I don't know. I guess ennui is the best way to describe it, of that feeling.
Also, when you go back to visit the suburbs, you're like, you have to stay with your parents, right?
Yes.
Like, you're not like renting a hotel or, you know what I mean? Or finding somewhere else. Like, if you go back to the suburbs to visit, you're staying at your parents' house. And no matter, I don't care how old you are, staying at your parents' house makes you feel like you're 5. Like, there's nothing, even you're like adult with children, doesn't matter. Am I saying too much about myself? It's just that it's just that all of a sudden the dynamic comes back, you know, like, I know if I go to see my mom, the first thing she's like, what can I get you? Like, and she goes into the kitchen to get me food. And I'm like, what are you doing? Right? Like, I can get my own food, but no, you know what I mean? It just goes back. You can't help it. So when you both said that there was something like childish about this 26-year-old, I think the large part of that is because this movie really, in suburbia with your parents, you are a child still.
Yeah.
Well, and I think like also, I mean, it seems to have a childlike understanding of jokes, and maybe it's 2004, I don't know, and maybe we have changed enough in the last 20 years to like be kind of astounded that this ever passed as like humor,
right?
Which, you know, fingers crossed. But was it super funny in 2004? For her to like constantly, like her character Sam to constantly be using the R word.
Yeah,
was it funny in 2004 for like Jean Smart's character to be like so casually racist about the man selling the tapes? Was it funny in 2004 to make jokes about Sally Struthers' philanthropy efforts with, you know, the really crass joke about like he was he was one of those kids with flies on his face.
Yeah, I really cringed. Oh boy.
I really wanted to vomit at that point.
Yeah.
And like the actor playing Tim was like so good and so wonderful, and that's what he had to sign up for. And like the casual racism of Zach Braff's script is, I think, very distressing to me. And I did not care for it. And also just the idea, and again, maybe this is something he's pulling from his real life. Sorry, not the racism, but maybe something he's pulling from his real life when I get to the ableism part of it, is that his mom, he describes his mom as the character as just being depressed his entire life, and that she probably wanted to die because she was a paraplegic.
Well, that was the original ending.
No, I know, but like the ableism, even in that statement, like I understand they moved away from the actual dark ending where like the father kills the mother or lets her die or helps her die or whatever. But like, it's so gross to me, the idea that like that they wanted to present that her life was just so awful that she decides suicide is the only way. And she has died in this bathtub, and 5 days later, that's the spot where they have their nice, cute moment.
I wondered about that
in
too.
The spot where she just died in that bathtub. Like
I know.
Honest to God, like that never hit me when I was like 20 years ago when I watched it. But that's all I could think of was like gross.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah, no,
gross.
Gross. Yeah.
Okay, so this is a somewhat more difficult question than usual, but do we think this movie still pops? Did we think it popped? You have to say that.
I did think it.
And then you have to say if it pops now.
Yeah, I did think it popped 20 years ago, like
Probably.
for sure. I really did. And I don't think it pops anymore, but I do think it's like cultural impact still pops. Because like, honestly, that soundtrack to me, for the most part, still really sticks me in my 25-year-old self. Like I am immediately back in my brain. It made me want to, so hear me out. Sorry, I will let you guys answer your question. I'm so sorry. But hear me out. Should we be doing next, for like the next couple of films, other movies that have the manic pixie dream girl trope?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, let's do it.
In them. Because like 500 Days of Summer is 15th anniversary this year. I think you guys already had it on the list. There's a few that I think that we should
The original
take
one
on. Apparently
is Elizabethtown starring
Kirsten
Dunst. Yeah.
Woo, that's
Orlando
a heavy
Bloom.
lift of a movie. Oh my
It's
God.
a terrible film. I remember
It really is.
But it is its 19th anniversary because it came out in 2005.
Well, I saw that one too.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah, and credit to Nathan Rabin. I mean, he apologizes now for having coined the term manic pixie dream girl in 2007, but I really do think that it is a interesting way to think about that era and that era of film and how we have sort of either grown past it or grown beyond it, and at what point the manic pixie dream girls were able to tell their own stories.
Yes.
Because that's not this film.
No.
Well, no, and then that question. I was reading some interviews with Zach Braff in this 20th anniversary, and he was asked about Natalie Portman's character, and he just said, "I created someone I would have wanted to fall in love with."
Yeah, and it's a common thing that I'm hearing from. I heard from dudes. In my 20s, that she was, in this character specifically, was a dream girl, and I really do think that there is a point at which the dream girl finally got to tell her own story and make her own film. Part of that has become like Greta Gerwig's domain. She has sort of taken that role and done stuff with it. But I think it also, Lena Dunham sort of has done a bit of a inverse on that. But I also think we saw it sort of really beautifully, not a manic pixie dream girl, but completely sort of subverted in Greta Lee's character in, oh my God, why is the name of the movie falling out of my head?
Past Lives?
Where we all fought about the
Past
ending.
Lives?
Sorry, what?
Past Lives?
Past Lives.
Oh.
Past Lives. We've seen the evolution of the character going from being a creation of male filmmakers and writers to being women taking control of these depictions. And I think it's interesting. You guys, do you think it pops? Sorry.
No, I don't. I can't like for me, watching the movie was, because I'd seen it before. I can't imagine who I would recommend it to now. I can't, and if I can think of someone, I apologize and I'm sorry because I don't think a whole lot of you, apparently. I just can't, with the music, I can't imagine it seeming revelatory, at all. I don't know who the storyline about, having mental illness, or I don't know, your father thinking you do. I don't know. I don't think it's, like you said, it's very helpful to anyone with an actual mental illness. So I don't think that they would watch it going, oh, I see myself in that. No, I don't think that's happening at all. So no, I can't give it a pop. No pops.
No, I really hated this movie when it came out. I was so mad about it. It's just I still see it as the point at which indie culture just gave up. And watching it now, I just think it's aged pretty badly. Yeah. There are too many beyond the pale moments to really recommend it to anyone to watch it for the first time now. So yeah, I don't think it pops. It hasn't popped in 20 years for me.
And it never popped for you ever.
Yeah.
No. Yep, that's very reasonable. Can't wait to see if we end up doing a series, and if at the end of it, AG, you're like, I'm never speaking to you again. I'm sorry. This is it. This is the end of the show. I'm so sorry. We love to leave our episodes on something we do recommend. I invite Lisa. Do you want to go first?
Sure. I don't know. I'm kind of offering this up as a public service announcement. PSA, if you will. Less of a recommendation. I did go and see Long Legs, the Nicolas Cage movie. And I think it had a tremendous marketing campaign. I know it's probably just me, but it was all over my Instagram. And it was just, it was supposed to be the scariest movie of all time. I just want to tell everyone, it's not. I managed fine. It's very odd. It's filmed in Langley, which is interesting. And it has the same lead actress as It Follows, which I thought was also interesting. So I just want to say, if you do go to see it, it's definitely much more on the Silence of the Lambs kind of feel than it is, say, an outright horror movie. So that's my thoughts on it. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Interesting.
Do you recommend people see it?
Well, it all depends on what you wanted to go in and see it for. Do you like a psychological drama? Then yeah, it was all right. If you were going in there for one of those really creepy horror movies, it wasn't very successful that way.
Okay, thank you. AG,
my turn. I've got something very special. I discovered an artist while I was on my cruise to Alaska.
You met them on the cruise?
No. I just discovered his work at one of the stops. His name is The Shrimp Whisperer, and I am holding up a calendar that I bought that you can see, but the listeners will have to Google it. shrimpwhispererak.com, I think is his website. But he's a shrimper in Alaska who photographs shrimp in dioramas, on boats, eating sushi.
Oh my God.
Skiing in hot tubs. And he's takes thousands of pictures of them driving a car and stuff. And he's made a calendar, and you can buy. He has an Etsy site. You can buy greeting cards. There's shrimper Christmas cards and stuff, Valentine's Day cards. Wow. The art, it's incredible.
So you're gonna have to wait till next year to get really into this now.
I know. It was my favorite thing that I saw on this whole trip. shrimpwhispererak.com. His real name is. He's from Valdez, Alaska, and his name is Al Lodert, and he's a shrimper, and he just does this for his hobby, and his art is absolutely great, and I love it.
Amazing.
That's
wow.
Really fun.
Wow.
Thank you so much for introducing me to this new world. Yeah. Both of you really just changing the cultural game with your recommendations.
That's what we do.
My recommendation is a podcast that a friend of the podcast started and has had one season of. It's called Bookspo by Carrie Claire, and I am a guest on one of the episodes. I think it's the last episode of the season, and it's her first season of the podcast, but she does a great job. She talks to authors about the books that inspire them. And I got to a little bit change the thing. I got to talk about the script for Dirty Dancing with mine.
Oh,
so I got to cheat a little bit. But anyway, it's just Carrie's great, and if you've enjoyed her on our podcast, then you should go check out her podcast, Bookspo, Bookspo. And also, I wanted to give a little shout out to Carrie and Joy Rao or Rowe. I don't know. It's Rowe. Sorry, Joy, if I'm butchering your last name. But both of them sent us little notes to welcome me back. Aww. And it was really nice to hear from them. And Joy is particularly enthusiastic if we decide to include a medical component of the show going forward. She was very enthusiastic and supportive of this. So, anyway, it's really nice to hear from people who listen to us. And I just wanted to say hello. And if you want to send us more email, you can at popthiscollective@gmail.com.
Well, especially because now we have access to our email again because you're back.
Yeah, that helped a lot.
Lisa and I did not know the password.
Yeah.
I viciously hoard all the secrets. And the passwords are secrets. Sorry. It's just, but now I've decided to stop being that way. Now everyone can check it.
Thank you.
Yes, we appreciate that.
And thank you to everyone for listening. And I hope you don't go watch Garden State. Let's just end it like that.
No, you're better off watching the 4-hour opening ceremony in segments.
Yes, there you go.
And marveling at the artistry and creativity of the French people.
Yes.
Amazing.
Wow, that's beautiful. Perfect.
That is really beautiful. If you are listening to this the day that it comes out next Wednesday, stop what you're doing and come and see us at the Rio. We're doing a little mini live show. It's happening Wednesday, August 7th. And the three of us, plus our guest, will be chatting, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And you'll get to watch Dirty Dancing, and I will read very briefly from my book. And I'd like to think that you'll have the time of your life.
Oh,
that's lovely.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Thanks. Oh yeah, there's a costume contest too.
Yeah.
So just stop what you're doing if you're listening to us right now. Get to the Rio. The event, doors at 6, event starts at 6:30.
But you don't have to wear a costume.
And you don't have to. Of course not. Of course you don't have to. But if you want to and you want to enter the costume contest, I'm just letting you know, there's some watermelon stuff at stake.
Perfect to know. And
the
it is
best
summer.
Fruit.
And that's
it's the best fruit.
Absolutely.
Are you getting the seedless
Well, thank you
kind,
everyone for listening.
Sorry.
You can only really get seedless
Yeah, okay,
now.
good.
Yeah. So anyway, but thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.